In the ancient lands east of the Jordan River, there lived a prophet named Balaam. His fame had spread far and wide. He was known not only for his wisdom, but for his ability to hear the voice of the divine and see visions beyond ordinary sight. Many kings and leaders sought his counsel, believing that his words carried power. One day, a message arrived from Balak, the king of Moab, a neighboring region. Balak was troubled and fearful, for the Israelites, a great and numerous people, had come near Moab on their long journey to the Promised Land. Balak had heard stories of their mighty deeds and feared they might overpower his people. Desperate, Balak sought out Balaam, hoping the prophet would curse the Israelites and weaken their strength. Balak sent messengers bearing rich gifts to persuade Balaam to come to Moab. When the messengers arrived at Balaam's home, they laid their treasures before him and conveyed Balak's request. Balaam listened carefully and then, as was his custom, withdrew to seek guidance from God. That night, God spoke to Balaam and gave him a clear command. Do not go with them. You must not curse the Israelites, for they are blessed. The next morning, Balaam relayed God's message to the messengers, refusing their gifts and sending them back to Moab with the king's request unanswered. But Balak was determined. Believing that Balaam might change his mind for a higher price, he sent a larger group of even more distinguished messengers, offering Balaam even greater wealth and honor if he would come and curse the Israelites. Balaam's resolve began to waver. The thought of riches and honor tempted him, and he wondered if perhaps there might be a way to fulfill the king's request. Once more, Balaam sought guidance from God, who allowed him to go with the messengers but warned him, "Go with them, but do only what I tell you." The next morning, with a heart conflicted by his desire for reward and his duty to God's command, Balaam saddled his donkey and set out on the journey to Moab. But Balaam's intentions were not entirely pure. God sensed that his heart was torn between obedience and the lure of wealth and honor. As Balaam rode along the narrow path between vineyards, something extraordinary happened. An angel of the Lord appeared, standing in the middle of the path with a drawn sword, blocking Balaam's way. Yet Balaam could not see this divine messenger. Only his donkey sensed the angel's presence, and she was filled with fear. Acting instinctively, the donkey veered off the path and into a nearby field to avoid the angel. Balaam, unaware of the angel and frustrated by the donkey's behavior, struck her with his staff, trying to guide her back onto the road. They continued their journey, and soon the path narrowed as they traveled between two high stone walls. Once again, the angel of the Lord appeared, blocking their way. In her fear, the donkey pressed close to the wall to avoid the angel, crushing Balaam's foot against the stone. Balaam cried out in pain and, filled with anger, struck his donkey a second time. As they traveled farther, the path became so narrow that there was no room to turn to the left or the right. Here, the angel stood directly in front of them, his sword gleaming and his face stern. Seeing no escape, the terrified donkey lay down on the ground, refusing to move. Balaam, overcome with rage and humiliation, struck his donkey a third time, shouting at her in frustration. Then, in a moment of divine intervention, God opened the donkey's mouth, enabling her to speak. With a voice full of gentleness and reproach, she asked, "What have I done to you, that you have struck me these 3 times?" Balaam, caught up in his anger and surprised, but somehow not questioning the miracle, answered his donkey as though this were entirely natural. "You have made a fool of me!" he exclaimed. "If I had a sword in my hand, I would kill you right now." The donkey, with wisdom beyond her master's understanding, replied, "Am I not your own donkey, which you have always ridden? Have I ever done this to you before?" Balaam paused, considering her words. His anger began to fade as he remembered how faithful and reliable his donkey had always been. In that moment, he felt a stirring of humility, realizing that there might be a reason for her unusual behavior. Just then, God opened Balaam's eyes, and he too saw the angel of the Lord standing before them with his sword drawn. Balaam was overcome with awe and fear. Falling face down on the ground, he understood the depth of his error. The angel rebuked him, saying, "Why have you struck your donkey these 3 times? I have come here to oppose you because your path is reckless before me. Your donkey saw me and turned away. If she had not, I would have killed you by now and spared her." Humbled and remorseful, Balaam confessed his wrongdoing. He offered to turn back and abandon his journey to Moab, realizing that he had allowed his desires to cloud his judgment. But the angel of the Lord instructed him to continue on his journey. reminding him again to speak only the words that God would reveal to him. As they resumed their journey, Balaam rode with a new sense of humility and respect for his loyal donkey, who had saved his life by seeing what he could not. He also carried a deeper understanding of the divine power that guided him, knowing that God's will must always be respected above all. When Balaam arrived in Moab, King Balak welcomed him eagerly, anticipating the curses that Balaam would pronounce over the Israelites. But as Balaam stood on a high hill overlooking the Israelite camp and prepared to speak, he found that he could not curse them. Instead, words of blessing flowed from his mouth. 3 times Balaam tried to speak curses, and 3 times he blessed the Israelites, declaring their strength, prosperity, and favor in God's eyes. Each time King Balak grew more furious, but Balaam knew he could do nothing except follow the will of God. In the end, Balaam's journey taught him a profound lesson, one that would resonate for generations to come. Wisdom and guidance can come from the most unexpected sources, even from a humble donkey. Balaam learned that when pride blinds us, we may need a simple and faithful friend or even a miraculous voice to bring us back to the path of truth. And above all, he realized that God's blessings cannot be changed by human desires. A timeless reminder of the importance of humility, the power of faithfulness, and the lesson that God's truth cannot be altered. It teaches us to listen to the voices around us, even those we might not expect, for they may carry the wisdom we need to hear. Balaam's journey reminds us that sometimes the smallest voices can speak the greatest truths, urging us to walk humbly and attentively in the presence of the divine. Balaam's encounter with his talking donkey and the angel highlights the importance of humility and listening. When pride clouds our vision, the voices of those we may overlook, perhaps even the smallest or most humble among us, can carry the wisdom that protects and guides us. The story teaches us to keep our hearts open to unexpected guidance and reminds us that God's blessings are unchangeable, while true wisdom is found in the quiet, faithful voice that calls us back to the path of this ancient tale of the prophet. Balaam and his loyal donkey is one of surprising miracles and profound lessons. When Balaam sets off on a journey to curse the Israelites in return for riches, he encounters divine resistance in an unexpected form. 3 times his donkey diverts from the path, sensing an angel blocking their way, an angel Balaam cannot see. Frustrated, he strikes his donkey, only to witness a miracle. God opens the donkey's mouth, allowing her to speak and question his actions. In this moment, Balaam's eyes are opened, revealing the angel and the gravity of his choices. Humbled, Balaam learns that wisdom can come from the most unexpected places and that God's will must be honored above all. This timeless story reminds us of the importance of humility, faithfulness, and listening to those who may see truths we overlook. The path of wisdom teaches that sometimes the smallest voices can speak the greatest truths, guiding us back to the right path. Through his journey, Balaam learned that wisdom often comes from the most unexpected places, and that humility and attentiveness are essential to understanding divine guidance. He realized that his donkey, who had carried him faithfully for so many years, had been the one to protect him from his own blindness. The memory of her gentle voice questioning his actions would stay with him always, a reminder of the day he nearly walked blindly into his own downfall. Balaam's journey teaches us the value of humility, the danger of pride, and the importance of listening. When blinded by ambition, we may miss the guidance that is all around us. Even the smallest voices can carry the wisdom needed to guide us. God's blessings cannot be altered by human desires, and true wisdom requires an open heart and a willingness to see beyond our own expectations. Through his faithful donkey, Balaam learned that sometimes we must listen closely to hear the voices that bring us back to the path of wisdom.